I live with my daughter, but still feel like I don't belong. There's a chair by the kitchen window that catches the morning sun just right. That's where I usually sit, cup of tea in hand, toast cooling on the plate, and a silence. Around me that's heavier than most people would expect in a house with 3 generations living under one roof. You'd think it'd be full of laughter, stories, warmth. And in many ways, it is. My daughter has built a beautiful home, filled with love and the hurried rhythm of a busy life. But sometimes, even in that beauty, I find myself looking out that window, wondering when I became the quiet observer instead of the participant. Moving in with my daughter wasn't the last resort. It was a decision we made together. She wanted me here. I wanted to be close to her, to help, to share in the growing up of my granddaughter, to cook meals and sit together in the evenings like we used to when she was little. I thought there would be more shared moments, more conversations over dinner, more simple togetherness. And while those things happen now and then, most of the time, I feel like a bookmark in a story that's already being written without me. There are days when I don't speak until well after noon. Days when the most interaction I have is a nod from my son-in-law as he heads out the door, or a passing "thanks, Mom" from my daughter as she juggles a phone call and a grocery list. I know they love me. I know they're grateful I'm here. But knowing that doesn't always quiet the echo inside, the one that whispers, "You don't quite fit anymore." I didn't expect to feel this way. I thought being close to family would fill that aching space that started to grow when I lost my independence. My own house, my circle of friends who slowly scattered with time. But instead, I found a different kind of loneliness, the kind that sits beside you at dinner, that lingers in the hallway after everyone's gone to bed. The kind that smiles when your granddaughter hugs you, but quietly asks, "When did you become a background character in your own life?" This story isn't about blame. It's not about pointing fingers or wishing things were different. It's about truth. The truth of what it feels like to live with your family and still feel separate. It's a quiet confession, maybe one you've whispered to yourself too, late at night. I'm sharing it because someone out there might need to hear they're not alone in this feeling. Because I've learned something important through it all. Sometimes the journey back to belonging doesn't start with being invited in. It starts with coming home to yourself. It was a warm Sunday morning when I moved into my daughter's home. The kind of morning where everything feels a little too hopeful, like the world is holding its breath for something good to happen. I remember the way she smiled when I arrived. Her arms open, her voice cheerful as she said, "It's going to be so nice having you here, Mom." We unloaded the boxes together, me, her, and her husband. My granddaughter sat in the living room, legs swinging off the couch, watching the cartoon. I didn't recognize. I unpacked my life in neat little piles. Old photo frames, favorite mugs, books whose spines were worn from too many reads. Each item felt like a breadcrumb leading back to a life I used to own, now carefully placed in someone else's house. At first, it felt like a new beginning. The guest room became my room, and we talked about sharing dinners and weekend outings. I imagined Sunday breakfast with everyone around the table, laughter over coffee, my granddaughter telling me about her school days. I pictured a rhythm, a place where I could still matter, but the rhythm never quite settled. My daughter's life moved fast. Between work, errands, her own parenting duties, and the constant buzz of her phone, our shared time became occasional glances and hurried goodnights. We'd say, "We should catch up soon," but soon kept drifting further away. The table I dreamed of sitting around together more often hosted separate meals, her family eating in the living room, me eating in silence at the kitchen counter. The house was full of voices, but rarely mine. The walls held memories I wasn't a part of. The silence that followed those first few days wasn't loud, but it was heavy. It didn't come with arguments or tension, just absence. A quiet, invisible wall that neither of us knew how to climb. It's strange how being welcomed and being included are two very different things. I never felt unwanted, just unneeded. like a decorative piece in the corner, appreciated, even. Cherished in theory, but not quite part of the action anymore. I know my daughter loves me. That's never been in question. She hugs me every now and then. She thanks me for little things. She remembers to ask how I'm feeling when she has a free moment. But love, especially the love between an aging parent and an adult child, is complicated. It shifts and reshapes itself around new priorities, new roles, new versions of each other. She's doing her best. I see that. I see the weight she carries, running a household, raising a child, building a career, holding together her own marriage. And in her busyness, she gives what she can. But often, it's not what I need. Loneliness doesn't always come from neglect. Sometimes, it comes from being quietly overlooked. From sitting in a room full of people and realizing you're the only one not being spoken to. From watching your granddaughter grow up in front of you and wondering if she even sees you as someone she can talk to or just someone who lives in the same house. And I started to wonder, is this what love looks like now? Quiet, polite, distant? In the beginning, I thought I was being sensitive. Maybe I expected too much, but then came the small moments. They build slowly, moments like walking into the kitchen and being met with half smiles and half conversations, like offering to help and being gently waved off with, "It's okay, I got it." Moments like birthdays being celebrated around me, not with me. Love was still there, but it wasn't loud. It wasn't shared stories at the dinner table or lazy afternoons spent laughing together. It was a nod from across the hallway, a sticky note on the fridge that said, "Thanks for feeding the cat." And I realized that loneliness isn't always the absence of people. Sometimes it's the absence of connection. You can live under the same roof, share the same air, and still feel 1,000 miles apart. And when that happens slowly, quietly, over time, it starts to feel like maybe you're the one who changed. Maybe you're the one who doesn't belong. But I've come to understand something important. Love doesn't always show up the way we remember it. And loneliness doesn't mean you're forgotten. It means you're ready to be seen again, fully, not just as someone's parent, but as someone still becoming. I do a lot in this house, not because I have to, not even because they ask, but because I want to. Because doing little things makes me feel useful, connected, grounded. I wake up early to unload the dishwasher. I straighten pillows before anyone notices they've been moved. I water the plants that would otherwise wilt in forgotten corners. I make soup on chilly days and leave it simmering on the stove, even if nobody says they were craving it. No one sees these things. And that's okay. I'm not doing them for credit. I'm doing them because they remind me that I still have something to give. But sometimes, I wish they did see. Not to praise or thank me, just to notice. To say, "Mom, I saw what you did, and it made a difference." Because when you become the quiet helper, the behind-the-scenes caretaker, your efforts blend into the background. You become like wallpaper. Always there, always steady, but never truly looked at. I remember once, my granddaughter was looking for her favorite socks. I had washed them earlier and folded them neatly on her bed. She ran past me shouting, "Mom, where are my pink socks?" Her mother replied, "I don't know. Maybe they're still in the laundry." I didn't say anything. I just smiled. It wasn't about the socks. It was about how invisible I'd become in their routine. It's a strange feeling, being needed but unnoticed. Valued perhaps, but not truly seen. But I've learned something in these quiet moments. That the things I do, though small, are acts of love. And love, in its truest form, doesn't always need applause. It just needs intention. I've started seeing myself not as someone waiting for recognition, but as someone planting seeds, seeds of comfort, of steadiness, of presence. Whether or not they bloom in someone's eyes doesn't change the fact that they were planted with love. And maybe that's the hardest, most beautiful part of aging. Learning to give quietly, fully, without losing yourself in the silence. Learning that your value doesn't come from being seen, but from knowing who you are, even when others don't look your way. It happened on a Tuesday. Not a birthday, not a holiday, not even a day with particularly nice weather. Just a regular Tuesday. I was standing in the laundry room, folding clothes that weren't mine, in a house that didn't quite feel like mine either. And something inside me just paused. I stood there, holding a towel in my hands, and I thought, when was the last time I felt like I belonged to myself? I had spent so much time trying to fit into their world, tiptoeing around there. Routines, measuring my words, folding myself smaller so I didn't take up too much space. I was a mother, a grandmother, a helper, a background presence. But somewhere along the way, I had forgotten that I was also still a woman, still a person. With her own story, that moment was quiet. It didn't come with fanfare or tears, just a quiet shift. Like a house settling on its foundation after a long storm. So I made a choice. The next morning, I walked to the little library 2 blocks away. I signed up for a book club. I started going to Tai Chi on Thursdays at the community center. I dusted off my old sewing machine, the one I hadn't touched since before I moved in. I called an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. We laughed so hard we cried. It felt like remembering a part of myself I'd put in a box and stored away when I became mom full-time. And slowly, I stopped waiting to be invited. I stopped trying to find my place in their world, and I began rebuilding mine. A smaller world, yes. A quieter one. But one where I belonged, not because someone gave me permission, but because I decided I was worthy of it. I started saying no to things that drained me. I stopped apologizing for reading in the living room. I played music in the kitchen. While I cooked, I made my own little traditions. Friday night tea and an old movie. Sunday afternoon walks by the park. And the most surprising thing? My daughter noticed. One night, she knocked gently on my door and asked if she could join me for a movie. We sat together, just the 2 of us, sharing popcorn and silence. Not the silence of disconnect, but the soft, warm kind that comes when 2 people finally meet each other again. That's the thing about choosing yourself. It doesn't push others away. It shows them who you truly are. And sometimes it reminds them that you were always worth seeing. Nothing in the house has changed, really. The same walls, the same routines, the same kitchen where my granddaughter rushes through on her way to school. But something in me has shifted, and that has changed everything. I no longer wait for someone to ask me how I am. I check in with myself. I no longer sit in silence, hoping to be noticed. I speak up when I have something to say, even if it's just about the weather or the way the neighbor's roses are blooming this year. I no longer try to mold myself into the background. I walk into the room like I belong there, because I do. I still fold laundry. I still cook dinner sometimes. I still leave little things undone so they have space to care too. But now, I also care for myself. I've carved out a space that no one had to give me, because I realized it was mine to claim all along. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. My daughter didn't fail me. Life didn't forget me. I just had to remember myself. Belonging isn't always about being included. Sometimes it's about including yourself. It's about deciding that your presence matters, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. So yes, I still live with my daughter. But now I also live with myself. I live with my stories, my strength, my quiet joy, my little rituals, my reclaimed identity. And in this new chapter, I found something I thought I lost. Not just a sense of place, but a sense of peace. And that chair by the kitchen window. I still sit there every morning. The tea still steams. The toast still cools. But now the silence feels different. It's no longer empty. It's mine.